Good morning, everyone.
I'm not a.
We're going to go ahead and get started right at 11:45 here. Garrett, I think, is going to be joining us, but he's probably running a few minutes late. And Barbara, you were going to be late, I thought, and you're here. So thank you for.
They gave me an
Okay.
excuse, gave me a pass at.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for coming today. Thank you. Let's see. First thing we need to do is look at the agenda here and ask if there's anything that anyone needs to add to the agenda at this time. No? Okay, then if I could get a motion to approve the February 28th agenda as submitted.
I move to accept the agenda as submitted.
Okay, Sharon, if I can get a second.
Second.
Okay, Gail. Okay. Also, I'd like to ask now for a motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of the January 24th meeting minutes, the pending deposited gift report, and the statistical reports as submitted.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Barbara. And if we can get a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Emily, thank you. Okay. Gonna move right on to public comment period. You see lots of folks back here, which is always good, but I don't think anybody's there for public comment. So we'll skip over that one and move right to reports. And we have both Ruth and Clay today. So we're honored. Who would like to?
Might be short.
Yep.
We had a big book drive 2 weeks ago. And now we're moving ahead with the organizing for our next book sale, first weekend of April. So the 6th and 7th, because the library is now open on Sunday, so that's great. And bringing board members, and what has any suggestions? Great.
Okay. Thank you, Ruth. Anyone questions for Ruth or Clay at this point? That's a good situation to begin having a wonderful collection like that, but I know it does put a lot of work on y'all. So thank you. Susan. Okay. Anything in particular you'd like to mention, or everything just leave it at that?
Chris and I are working on, we're having exploratory conversations with local foundations and businesses related to the children's space and early childhood learning efforts. Thank you.
Fantastic. Let me ask one quick question. Annual appeal has started, your annual fund letters and things, or is that?
Went out in November of last
November,
year.
okay.
And so right now we look
When
pretty good for this one year.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember the schedule on that. I always like to make that quick reminder that we're in a new year, so if you looking at that, it's a great time to make your personal donation to the foundation. I always try to put it down at the beginning of the year, keep track of it that way. Okay, Scott, administration.
All right, not too much to add to my report. I will point out that on page 9, we've added 20 additional hours, the hours that we did last month. So since the beginning of the year, we've added 48 hours, public service hours to what we've been doing. So that moves us from 412 hours a week to 460 hours. So I'm very pleased to report that, and that has just really been part of hiring all of the positions that have been vacant, getting people in place, and so we've been able to expand those hours. So that big goal of access, improving public access, I believe we're meeting it better. And I was thinking about this a little bit this morning. If you total those up, so that's almost 25,000 service hours, public service hours for our libraries across the city. And I was challenged to think of another city department that provides that much public service to all ages of the
That's
city.
good messaging. That's good messaging. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of Parks and Rec, their facilities are open all the time. Schools, that's a confined population. But almost 25,000 hours go to our patrons. And anyone in the city can walk in and use our buildings staffed by library employees. So I think that's something to think about and something to talk about when we get into budget and remind our city councilors that, wow, look what we're doing. And it's a number everybody can kind of get their head around.
Anyway, we can get 500 hours.
I know, I'm right there with you.
I'm sorry, I just always have to push a little bit. Yeah.
No, I'm right there
But
with you.
500 has such a significant meaty sound.
Oh, I know, yeah.
You know?
Indianapolis 500, my home.
Yeah. One thing, good things when they hear 500.
Yeah, I thought that was Daytona.
Daytona's a 500 as well.
Maybe.
Do you send
Yeah.
press release?
We are all the time sending like out on our social media channels, but that would be something we could do. I also want to mention that I found out this morning that Ripple is going to Nutsy's birthday party this weekend. Apparently there is a when Nutsy's birthday, well, I don't know, it's Nutsy and Natasha. So that, I don't know how the
And we're
relationship.
family friendly here, so.
Yeah.
They're siblings.
Yeah.
They might be twins.
So I heard it's really cute. So Ripple will be there and apparently the children go around and they get all the mascots to sign their autograph book. And Ripple will sign with his little sticker.
I love
And
that.
so I think that's pretty neat. So those are the big things that we've had going on.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Scott? Okay, Garrett. Great to see you. You have been busy and are very busy, we know right now, in other advocacy, besides the library, so.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is my advocacy group perspective. I do own an email that I promise I'll get to you this afternoon. But the purpose of the advocacy email will again be continuing our aims. As we talked about before in previous meetings, we want to ensure that we are just not waiting to the budgetary season to begin our conversations related to where we are, where we need to go as a library. So in the communication, what we're going to focus on is some of the successes that we've had. We've had a ton of successes with the library over the last year. We are very proud of them. Some of we've already told them about. But we want to make sure that we're reminding them, particularly as we're in election year, what's going on and what their investment needs to be to the public libraries as they're going to their communities, actually if we go to re-elect them. So that's something that I think we'll include in that. But we also want to make sure that we are reiterating our acts related to our renovations for our library. You know, reimagining, if you will, what our Franklin library would look like. So we'll include that in there. Again, as we did before, we're going to include some graphics into the communication. I think the last communication we did was actually very effective when we looked at getting feedback from our city council representatives. They really liked that. They were like, oh, that's what it's going to look like. So kind of, putting that again into that, but also giving a reminder of some different programs that we have coming up within the library as well. Just so they can share that at their actual local meetings. It's going to be important. Because we want them to be as engaged as they possibly can, but we don't just want it to be them. We want it to be people in the community as well. I know we talked about before the importance of creating ambassadors within our community. So we really want to make sure as we go into this season that we really kind of push on that as much as we possibly can. So I guess one of my asks for our lovely board is to look into ways as we go into our next meeting that you can identify ambassadors within your communities. Within your districts, because I think, as you go through this budgetary season, I'm sure all of us at some point have been down to a city council meeting or been down to multiple meetings over the years. I think if you can go down and share testimonials about, how great your local library is, how much we appreciate the additional hours in your community now, so you can be able to utilize that on Saturdays and Sundays in some cases. I think we'll further our initiatives and our goals of being able to, achieve additional money within the upcoming season.
Excellent, and John will get that out fairly soon after she gets it. Garrett, one quick question for you. So we're going to be you're going to put this information together. We'll send out to our city council members and can use it with others, obviously also. Are we at the point yet of talking about a number?
Not yet. I think
No.
one of the, staff can add to it, but I think there's been this delay, if you will.
Well, yeah, and I can just throw this in right now. It's part of the budget report that I was gonna give is that the mayor shifted his announcement of the budget from March sixth to the end of March. One of the reasons to do that was the assessor has a better figure for what the revenues will look like in 2025. So they've shifted things, and so they haven't made many decisions about where they're going to, what they're gonna propose in terms of a budget, because until they get that number, they're kind of working in the dark. So once they get that number, we'll know more what's gonna be, what goals and objectives will be achieved in this year's budget, what the funding levels will be. That should be coming in any day now. is
I
what
was gonna say,
I'd
but that's a month away
Yeah.
from when the
Yeah.
budget is. So what is the library's plan? Because it doesn't matter what the library wants, what they're gonna give us.
Yeah.
We want more, right?
I
I mean, that-
I think what Scott, what I can do this afternoon, is put together, not only just like what our priorities are going to be over the next year.
Right.
But also just put together like a projected number, just kind of throw it out there. if you will.
Right.
And then that can help set the tone for the discussion, to even kind of put a little bit of pressure on the mayor and his
Well,
administration.
Mayor Lincoln
Yeah.
Sanders, I mean,
Yeah.
the talk that all that has to happen in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So you're doing your job, but preparing.
Right.
To have that budget look great when it comes out over to you guys.
And I think, there's probably another reason why there's been a little bit of a push. I know the mayor has a lot of exciting things happening in the next couple of weeks as well, personally. So I think that's probably, factored into a little bit of the delay and that, but we absolutely can put together what our ask is.
Right.
And the last thing they can say is, they can say yes, they can say no. So we can just put together.
I think Chris is exactly right, first, the more thing, I think it's Samuel Gompers. Right, no, I can't help but think of the Samuel Gompers quote on that, but it's true in this case. But maybe it's not entirely true, and that what we really want is what it takes to run the library with the programs that we think need to be there. That's going to be more than they offer us probably. But if they would have funded fully at what we asked for,
Going up. Scott's pushing.
he is.
Let's-
He
Let's
is.
help him.
But I mean, I think from the perspective of our talking to those council members, if we're talking to them between now and the time that budget comes out, whatever that is, to some extent is immaterial. We have the priorities that we're trying to do. And what we're doing is that we need you to fund these at that. And we don't know how much of a shortfall it'll be, or whether, the mayor will say, I've just thought about it and I think I can do everything the library's asked for. I'll be surprised, but it'd be wonderful if he did. But I think what we're looking for is to push those programs, and then we need full funding to do that. And I don't know that we need to give them that number. I mean,
Yeah,
we should have that
It does
number.
not have to be a number.
It doesn't have to be yet.
It can be a substantive, here's what we want to do for the
Exactly.
people of Richmond.
Right. And then,
But the internal game is just as important. as the-
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, we'll jump over to facilities to Janet.
Well, the buildings are still standing, so. I missed the last meeting. I missed all of you very much, but. Scott, what's going on in facilities?
So we've been working with trying to find a location to the memory lab, so I've reached out to a local architect to help us kind of look at our space and see where it might be best to place this new service. Well, it's a service we have right now. It's not in the right place, but we want to get it in the right place. And so I'm gonna get a proposal back. I'm gonna bring the facilities committee together and we can talk about that. Gail's been working on the bookmobile project. You've got a motion here that is an unfinished business from last month that keeps us moving forward on that. We're still waiting on the guidelines from the federal government as to what it's gonna look like. I would recommend we go and pull the guidelines from last year and see what they look like and start formulating a plan around what those old guidelines were. I don't know that we've done that yet, but that's something that we can do. I've been working with Jen Dool on the outreach engagement team and like discussing what a outreach mobile library would look like and what we can do right now in terms of things we can try in mobile outreach without a bookmobile. So it's like, how to describe it, like, we're doing mobile library without a mobile library. So what would that look like? So trying those things out so we can figure out a need and then determine what the vehicle would look like and then what we would need around it. So we're doing those things right now, putting that information together, all in anticipation of once we have the guidelines, we can formulate a better ask for that. So that would be
About halfway down on the page, it says, how much funding can libraries request? And it says typically the share of funding going to libraries has been from $50,000 to $2 million. So libraries have been proactive in applying for these grants. And down under the note, the first note, first bullet says, which I discovered a little bit of, each Congress member establishes their own forms and deadlines, which can vary between offices. And when I looked at, generally, I did some searching and I found a New Hampshire congressman specifically has some limitations, for instance, that might relate to us. He would not acknowledge a proposal for a memoriam, which was kind of our guideline, at least moving forward with Richmond's to start. That doesn't apply to Jennifer McClellan. She doesn't have any of these guidelines posted yet. I've spoken multiple times to the office without a response about timing. So this is clearly being held up because what we hope passes this week in Congress. And so the whole system can move forward and the guidelines will be released. So there are the couple things that have jumped out at me, and I kind of tried to look for the 2024 guidelines, and it appears that they've pulled them back, or at least I'm not finding them. For instance, the New Hampshire congressman said, if you want to see what happened in 2024, click here, but it was a dead link. So anyway, that's where we stand now.
Yeah, while we have that page highlighted there.
Yeah.
I noticed the comment about you can submit the same request to congressmen and the senators. Is there any value of talking to Tim Kaine or?
You have to do that.
Yeah.
I was
yeah.
gonna say, do you do
can't
both?
have
Right.
The entire.
I would say we want to get,
delegation.
okay.
No,
Just,
but
yeah.
only one person will sponsor.
Well, that's what I was
but the
wondering.
whole
It,
team has.
okay,
Right.
I just couldn't tell from that when they say, submitting it, the same request.
And the, right.
And the new.
So it's,
And it's best that they just.
And the
It's
New
still good.
Hampshire congressman specifically said he expected to see support letters from local leadership, resolutions at the state assembly or local council. So there's going to be a lot of moving forward.
okay. Good. And I have to apologize. I skipped over early learning literacy.
Skipped over.
Well, I know, I saw Garrett's name and my eyes went down to Garrett's further down.
If you want to go and then I'll go.
Go ahead. Yeah, I don't have a formal report. It might be a discussion.
Okay. Last month, Scott just had such a wonderful report about all of the people we've been able to hire to finally get us to the staffing that we need. And among the things that he and Beth Morris, the person in charge of children's programs, were able to do was to promote all of the children's people in the branches, bring in some additional resources. What I'm delighted to report is we have now hired an early literacy, early childhood woman, real star coming over to us from Henrico. So the last piece of have the fabulous team in place has just been nailed, and she's just accepted the offer. So we have the staff. That's important. Last year we tried an experiment with bringing in 2 interns, as I've said. Huge hit. Susan and I have been able to get the money for 4 interns this year. And we're going to see if Scott can work some magic with the city and maybe get them to pay for a couple interns. Maybe not, but we've doubled it, so that's good. Programming is about final, and we're bringing in some new programs that our kids are just going to love. Your son is going to be crazy about it. Teeny tiny farms, they're gonna bring little teeny animals. Don't you think that? Yes, we're gonna start a mad scientist program, and it's gonna be for little ones and for bigger one. I mean, it's gonna hit the, Beth and her team have finalized in mid-February, a dynamic summer. We could do a lot more with more money. We could do a lot more because we're still fighting our way up, but all things look terrific at this juncture.
It's excellent. Thank you for your continued focus on it so heavily. It's just
Farms, tiny little farms. They're bringing little teeny animals. Real animals, like little teeny animals.
Oh.
They're teeny. Yeah.
I'll have to come.
I know. I had to bring my grandsons.
okay. Any questions for Chris on that? It just sounds like we're just rolling right along. Okay, Emily.
I don't have a formal report. Bill, I don't know if you wanted to have a discussion about recruiting efforts at this meeting, or if you wanted to save that for.
We can, if you want to open it up and start, we had talked about discussing. stuff.
Sure, yeah. So other people I've gotten bits of comments or thoughts from other people in the past. To me, the biggest thing is that we, in our recruiting going forward, really, there's room to make the board better represent the city. And in my opinion, the sort of the angle to approach this would be geographic representation of the city. Right now, the lower numbered districts, like 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, are pretty well represented on this board. I was in the 5th district and moved to the 1st, so I'm not even a 5th district rep anymore. So thinking about that, I think that that's a way to have libraries that we don't have eyes on, that not all of us have eyes on, to the extent that I see the Belmont Library weekly, of course. So that's my first thought, throwing it out there. I don't know if others would have other ideas.
Our librarians are good sources.
And I think librarians are good sources, absolutely. I have one lead who I've been in contact with in the past, and she was someone recommended to me by a librarian at one of our branches. What do others think?
I have a
Yeah.
question. I will say I strongly agree that we have to represent the city, and that's all voices in the city. Do the council people, and Garrett, you probably know this, are they a good source of candidates for Emily and our team?
Potentially, yes, I think so.
They would know would they be willing to put forth community leaders? Because clearly someone has to love the library first and foremost.
Right.
If they don't care about the library, they are the wrong pick for us. But then we want them to be able to share what we're doing and engage with that district. And so that's a hard thing for any of us to figure out, I think.
I think it's a good response there. I think there's 2 ways in which our council representatives can engage. One, obviously through their citizens association meetings, and they can give their say, updates, but also make the request to say like, hey, we're looking at, a representation on our board of trustees. If you're interested, please let us know. But then also they can also circle around back from that through their newsletter as well. So there's kind of like 2 different touch points to kind of engage with, let them know that the opportunity is out there. I mean, I think that's very true, because that's how I found out about the board. obviously I've always been engaged, I always loved our libraries, but, I always had also a relationship with Ellen Robinson. One of her neighbors,
Yeah.
told me about the opportunity that I got to contact with, Bill, and the rest is history. So yeah, I think there's definitely ways in which your representatives can connect the dots. Right?
Well, one thing I'd like to suggest, and two comments quickly. Chris, I think you're a great example of a city council member who did that, because probably was it Kim Gray? I'm trying to remember who.
Yeah, it was Kim.
I think it was Kim
And it
who,
was only because my emails to David kept going into junk, so I could never get,
okay, but
I
it
could
was
never
one.
get to talk to him, so I didn't know who to talk to.
It was wonderful, though. That's what I was gonna say. We had a council person who came and said, here's somebody I think would be good. So it's a good example of it. Gary, you're another example that I'd like to talk about, in that you, were sort of out of a group that, when Dave was doing this, as most of the newer board members, came on. He said, well, we need somebody with finance experience. And I think we need to look at district experience, at district locations, and we also need to look at skill sets. I think, we've sort of filled the one now very well on the facility side. We've got good coverage there. I don't know, on the finance side with Garrett's situation right now running for mayor, whether that maybe having someone else who has some more financial background would be helpful to take some of that load off. And then outside of those two specific skill sets, I think then we get into more of that broad representation. Obviously with Sharon, we've got education as the other skill set that I'd like to say that sort of the facilities, construction, et cetera, is one. The finance side.
I would give you another. You remember
Bobby?
Daisy Weaver?
Yeah.
She was an insider in the city. She
be great.
knew how the budgets
Yep.
worked. She knew everybody. She knew the timing. She
Yep.
knew a city insider
Yep.
of Daisy Weaver's caliber and demeanor.
Yes, I think you're right. Somebody like that. And, Garrett's doing a great job getting us moving on a lot of the lobbying advocacy things. But the folks who are just really connected and with their council members helps us a lot on that. So those are the things I would think we should be looking for. Obviously, we're also trying to get a nice mix as far as the racial,
Right, we have to
economic,
represent the city.
gender. I mean, all of those things. That sort of happens, I think, because of where the districts are and what the skills. And I think David also went out and said we had some shortages, and he tried to fill those as much as he could. But those fall in. This to me, they fall in behind what those people can do. That we should be able to find good people in each area who are good at finance. It shouldn't be you can only get one of those from the fifth district. I mean, there should be good finance, but every district.
Well, and having multiple skill sets that we know over recruiting could help generate ideas
Yes.
with the people we're talking with, whether
And
they're librarians, city council representatives.
Exactly. If you're talking to those
Yeah.
are the people we're looking for in those, I think.
Great.
Other thoughts?
Well, this is one of the most important things we do.
It is.
So
And we've got a great board right now. I think that on his departing, sort of last things that he did, David did line up some really good members here, and it's held us well. But we have some who are going to be rolling off. And Emily, I think you don't know exactly who's rolling off yet, probably, but as that happens, we are going to have to fill some of those. And then the other thing that I'll bring up is that if we have people who want to be on the board, but we don't have board spots yet, once again, we can bring them in to do sort of, we could have someone come in as an advisor to the finance committee, or someone to come in to help with advocacy. They don't have to be a board member. And we could bring them and say, okay, we want to get you comfortable with it and part of the team. And then when, Bill goes out, then you've got a spot to go into, or when Garrett rolls out, you got a spot to go into, whatever. It'd be nice to have that. And that's something we haven't done a great job of doing, frankly. I mean, it's just never been, as big a thing for us, so. Other comments on that?
Do
No?
you have what you need from us? Do you need more? Do you need? Or how do you? What do
So,
you need?
Right now, I think I'm waiting on the registrar or the boards and commissions.
Okay.
To maybe let us know how many positions. And when they would be posted. I don't know any of that. Right now, I just don't have information. I know that Barbara's term ends June 30th, right? So,
And I think that's Barbara's second, right? It's not a reappointment. Right. So with that is one.
so that's all that I know. I don't know what the application timeline even looks like when the city would post that and how long we would have to actively recruit and remind our contacts or ask our contacts to, fill out a form on the city's website. So I don't know any of that, but it would be, if you do have people in mind, I don't know when would be a good time to sort of reach out. Not knowing, I don't want to have 8 contacts that we've made, really are enthusiastic about and like and have kind of built up a little rapport with, and then one position and all these good people applying and spending a lot of time on that.
Well, just not to single out Barbara, but since we know Barbara's spot's gonna be open.
Right.
Barbara, you're in which district?
Third.
Third. Anybody else in the third? Okay, so that's one that maybe we want to try to refill to third. And as far as the time frame on that, probably beginning of the fiscal year, July 1, that your term, or end of June, your term ends. City council has been pretty good about approving them once we make the recommendation. I know the things that boards and commissions has to do, but I would think, we could actually start looking to get somebody from the third district. We could start that anytime now and figure that we'd like that person to be able to start in July. And then now that's 4 months, less, basically 4 months from now. That's not too long. We're not gonna have somebody saying, well, why can't I start sooner?
Well, I think having someone from the third would be wonderful, but also any of the districts that are not
That aren't
represented at all,
represented,
because
yeah,
we have,
right.
I mean,
Third, yeah.
there are several.
there are.
Can a city council member be nominated?
A sitting city council member?
Yes.
That's
so.
an interesting idea.
Okay.
Accused with.
Our legal advice here is probably not.
I don't-
However, we may have some city council members who aren't city council members.
Right.
I think it would be, it's a separation of duties.
That's right.
So that's why I think it would prohibit something like that from occurring.
Yeah.
They get to appoint the people who are on it. So
Right.
They're really overseeing the process. And then the body definitely has an independent, control feature over it. It's been like that for 100 years, right? So, in many ways, it's representative of and speaking for the people. So I would think that would be implicit in some ways of the process.
I think it's certainly good to start now thinking about it, even to pinpoint maybe somebody in the third or other districts, if only that sometimes we have challenges getting quorums. So to have a full board July 1,
Be helpful.
I think is.
And there's nothing wrong with saying it was a highly competitive situation, and sadly.
And maybe tap your
We'd love to have you
finance,
help with.
education expertise, maybe.
Yeah.
ask-
But I think
Yeah.
the idea that if you get multiple candidates and you have a way that you can use their expertise and also give them an opportunity, because you're gonna have other vacancies coming up.
Yeah.
In the near future, so it would give them an opportunity to know what we do and see if it's a board that they want to serve on, because when you get that list, because, Anne Francis sends them out all the time, so she gives you a running, on her website of what the committees are.
Mm.
So she's constantly putting that information out in the third, so, and I'm sure the other council persons do that as well, but yeah, it definitely makes sense to bring people in that you can get them grounded.
Well, it's wonderful if we can recruit someone who we know is passionate about the library. It's great when people apply.
Right.
But if you have city council or library, library staff who know that so-and-so really cares about this library and this community.
request.
Okay.
Wondering about Michael Jones. He's a delegate.
Interesting. He could do, I mean, he obviously bring a lot to the party if
Right.
he, were interested. I don't know Mike at all.
Yeah.
Michael. Emily, do you happen to know him? No. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to assume one way or the other, but
No, I don't.
I know
You do.
him
I know who
from
he
the
is.
past. I know him from the past.
do you think you and Emily maybe talk about him? And if the two of you think that he's worth talking to, go through the pros and cons and then reach out together, maybe?
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. And my allusion, by the way, to some of the city council members not being there. We have at least one city council member who's running for mayor. And I guess he can't run for mayor and city council at the same time. So we know that the first district's gonna have an opening, city council. Yeah, everybody, Kristen has said she's not running again. So there are gonna be a couple of, and both of those people, both Kristen and Andreas, assuming that Andreas doesn't win mayor, which Garrett fervently hopes is the case.
And we hope so too.
But if both, as an example, both Kristen and Andres are out there, Andres is a former library worker himself up in Shenandoah, somewhere up in on the Winchester area, maybe western part of the state, and has a soft spot for the library. Not necessarily showing in all the funding, but he has. And I think Kristen's been very community oriented from what I've seen over the years of school board and
Yeah.
city council. So, you know, they're two people who'd be good to talk about.
Yeah.
Michael Jones is
I think
another
we
one.
Facilitated that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the three of y'all can work together a little bit on that one, and just get
Yeah.
some input. Okay. Other thoughts about the, I guess I'm gonna mention, I guess we also in June will be figuring out leadership and looking at the committee roles and all that again. So just sort of think about, you know, it's months down the road, but they go by really quickly sometimes. Think about if anybody has particular spots that he or she would like to be on, or, you know, be leading in. And I think talk to Emily about that, right? Because you'll be holding elections. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else for Emily and the governance? No, okay. The only unfinished business that I have right now is the what is not resolution, what is it? What are we calling it? Motion. Thank you. Thank you. My mind's going here. This is. So we had talked about a motion there. We have a motion draft. We had talked about a motion at the last meeting concerning the bookmobile. And I think the motion that you see in writing here is an example of less is more. It is a very trimmed down, straightforward kind of emotion that I hope you'll agree does a nice job of expressing the board's full support of the bookmobile concept, while leaving lots of flexibility for exactly how that bookmobile would be used, exactly how it would be funded, ongoing questions that honestly we can't answer quite yet. I think you mentioned Jen is doing some of that experimentation now with the bookmobile without a bookmobile. Gail and Chris have been thinking about ways we could get financing. Obviously, either what we see as demand from the community or what we see as potential funders could affect how we structure that bookmobile. Or anyway, I won't go further than that with it. So anyway, the motion that was drafted is as follows: to expand access and lifelong learning opportunities. The Library Board of Trustees moves to authorize the exploration of expanding mobile library services through a bookmobile and direct board member Gail Warner to investigate and pursue potential grant funding opportunities, including federal community project funds, for the purchase of a bookmobile. So I'm going to ask if anyone would like to make any comments, changes, additions, subtractions to that. Any comments they'd like to make on it? They think it. Okay, with no comments, then I'm going to ask for someone to make a motion that we approve this.
I move that we approve the motion draft as presented.
Garrett, thank you so much. Okay, and all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no, we're good. Any other unfinished business that anyone has? Yeah.
It kind of goes along with the idea of the bookmobile, before the bookmobile.
Okay.
And then it might involve some money, but do we have any? Okay, what I would, excuse me, like to kind of propose is that we have something like a display, something that, we can take to like the 2 Street Festival or, places like that and set up like a table, booth, whatever have, whatever you want to call it. It would involve money because, number one, personnel, somebody would have to be there and then it would involve some graphic stuff, and probably a lot of this to display, but I'm kind of concerned with people being able to get library cards now. And, now they can get one without coming into a branch, and with all the services that we offer online, we need to get more people signed up. And I kind of would like for us to explore ways to do that by going into the community, especially those communities that are not, it's not convenient to get to a branch. And like I said, I'm sure it would involve personnel and money. So at this point, I'm just kind of throwing it out there as something to explore, but I think we really need to go into some of these communities that are expanding, the Upper South Side, Jeff Davis, Scott's Addition, places like that. I really want to push it.
It's really part of part of Chris's focus on accessibility. It ties to that. I mean, I think this is that same,
Well, we want people to have libraries.
right.
You are 100%. And I don't know if there's a way to figure out the percentage of people in Richmond versus library card holders. I do know from reading old reports, like 2008, 67% of, I don't know what a service population had library cards. I expect that's gone down. I don't know how Richmond compares to our neighboring things. But even if we're ahead of all of them, we should always, library card is the first step to us being able to offer you services, for us to be able to woo you into the library or online and to make your life better.
Yeah.
So I love that, Sharon. That is a good idea. Yes,
We have that. We don't do it enough, but we do that,
Yeah, we have all of that stuff. All of the things you're talking about, we're doing.
literally.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Heather has a table and a
Yeah.
tabling outfit that she can take to all of the things in the community. And she has many connections in this community where she will show up and table and hand out library card applications.
And Jen has a whole kit with a tablecloth and a backdrop and she sends it out whenever we're gonna do outreach. We let her know and she sends us a big tub full of literature to
We
distribute
have all of it.
and a display board with up-to-date signs on it and everything. It's beautiful.
How is it communicated that you're gonna be somewhere? 'Cause I've never heard it. I'm just wondering.
I don't know, but Heather keeps her eyes on what's happening in the community and she shows up.
Mhm.
And all of our other branches do the same thing as well. Now, we may not make it to every event, but any event that we're reached out to attend to, that get invited to, we show up. So, like, this thing with we're sending Ripple to the Nazi event.
yeah.
In all of our communities, we have this ready to go.
Good.
So we do that.
Well, I'm hearing you say all the things you're invited to. Is there money to set up booths in places that we aren't necessarily
we do.
invited to?
We do
but,
that
you
as
know,
well. So if there's an event that has a small fee or something, we will table that.
Yeah.
Often the events will invite us because they want representation from the library, and we do show up. Every branch manager makes sure that we show up when we can. Heather, every spring does Dia de los Niños. So that is an event that she holds at this location that she coordinates with all of the partners in this community, and it's around the child. And it's very positive. I encourage you to come to it. It's in May, correct?
April 20th.
April 27th, so April, May. So that one is coming right up. And almost all of our branch libraries have something like that going on. It's hard to keep up with it because we have 9 locations
Right.
and then we have an outreach. You know, again, our website's our 10th location. When we get a bookmobile, it'll be an 11th location. So we have, you know, everyone is really pulling together and making sure our outreach engagement is really going. When it comes to like library card sign up, I can tell you for sure that we have pretty much half the city is signed up as a library card ownership. Every month in the board report.
Okay, so
Yeah.
50% about.
So every year in the Bibliostat report, and I can pull the numbers and bring them to you next month, it says how many library card holders that we have.
Yeah.
And we can compare that to the population,
Yeah.
so I can report on that. Monthly, what I report on is new library card distribution.
Right,
So,
right.
and then the other thing that's really important that we do all the time is we sign childcare facilities and any school that will let us come in
That's
to
so
let us
good.
get library cards. So the library card is that kind of that first card that
Right.
we very much push. September is library card sign up month. We always do something big on that month as well. So I'm glad that you guys are concerned about this because it is definitely something we're concerned about with. I need to do a better job of letting you know that that's happening because I apparently am not letting you know that those things are happening.
I don't think that's the issue.
No.
Scott. I,
Yeah,
yeah, no, I don't think you should feel that way at all.
No, that's not why I said it, but
Yeah.
like I said, I know nothing about these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So I'm not blaming it with
Well,
anything
no,
like
but
that.
it's-
I don't mean to,
I
I'm
appreciate.
very glad to hear, what you're doing. I just would like to see it expanded, outside of things that we're invited to.
Right,
Yeah.
we all
Well,
want more.
And,
so-
and really what we're also hearing is that librarians are finding these things on their own too, and saying, we'd like to be in your thing. So branch by branch, librarian by librarian, that's happening, but it may not be getting to all of the events that we would think. And then that's,
Hard,
it's very difficult. I'm not,
it's hard.
and some are gonna fall between the cracks. Like, well, I mean, the 2 Street Festival, I guess that's covered by Maine. It's sort of the branch for it, but there's not somebody who maybe would think, oh, I mean, that's really a citywide thing. That's not really a branch specific as much. So maybe on some of those citywide things, we can ask board members to keep an eye. And in your case, Sharon, if you say, oh, 2 Street would be one you'd like to see a presence at, maybe forward that information along to whoever the right person is. I don't know who that would be, Scott. You
And
can,
that's me.
it's you? Okay,
So I'm gonna follow up on what Scott said. I'm a data person. By nature. Let's explore the data. Let's get input from the branch managers. You might be doing things that are not a good use of your time. There might be things that you would like to try out. Let's first of all, get a sense, is there a problem or is there not a problem? Do we want to do better? Do we not want it? That's your decision. That's not our decision. If you decide you want to do better, talk to us and we'll figure out ways to help. If you're happy with the way, these are your calls, not our calls. Yeah.
One thing that has held us back in the past is staffing. Because a
Right,
lot
of
of
course.
things are on
Yeah.
weekends and evenings and things like that, when we kind of have skeleton staffs. But now that we have so many more staff members, we can really ramp it up.
And that, if you decide, it's your call. But if you decide that's important, we want to support you on that because I agree with Sharon. The library card is the first step in a million ways we can help our people.
Is there any way to, you said, 50% of the Richmond population has cards. Is there any way you can determine what areas, More
District
people have,
households.
district, what areas are lacking in people with cards or, is
Yeah,
it?
you can do zip codes, but sometimes I don't know if it's a zip code +4.
Yeah.
But there are companies that can probably get into it and look at it in higher level detail with like census information, those things. And you can figure out like how many are in the whatever district you want to do, or whatever census tract. I don't know if you're familiar with census tracts. So you could probably get down to census tract level and really get into those sorts of things. There are vendors out there who can help you identify and segment your library market. So you can break the demographics down like that, and you can tailor your messaging specifically to pinpoint certain areas. I think that would be an amazing investment in marketing research. Again, funding, and then once we get that marketing research, I'd love to be able to say, okay, here's how we're gonna go after it. That is something that I would love to have an expert come in and help us develop, because
The IMLS database is also really fabulous for every library system in the country, so it'd be easy. Wouldn't be easy, but.
it's
you
those rest,
could-
like, yeah.
you could- I mean, because I can do the easy ones. I can look at Henrico and Chesterfield and see what their service populations are and what their registered users are, and just get rough percentages. So the data's out there. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to look at that all the time.
I remember calling a couple years ago about getting information on cards for new neighbors in my building. And they said, oh, we send out letters to all new residents of the city, so. The library system. Yeah, that kind of.
But I bet $1 million there are council people who do not have a library.
Oh, yeah.
I bet $1 million. I don't have $1 million, so don't bet me. I bet. Well, maybe. I bet something that there are leaders in the city who don't have a library card. I mean, that's not Heather's responsibility.
No.
That's our responsibility. Yeah.
One thing I was gonna add is that we can do this a little bit outside the box. When we talk about communications to our city council representatives, we've obviously always kind of framed it under the ask of like what we're trying to do priority wise, and obviously the dollars, that's high step, right? But we can also ask them is that they're always having their district meetings.
That's exactly
Why not
right.
do your district meeting?
Do it at the
local
library, yeah.
libraries?
So
Obviously, logistics that we worked out, obviously with the branch manager.
Yeah.
But that's a great way to bring the community into the actual facility. And we can be able to tie that to say, get your library cards,
Right.
while you're here.
And we can use Heather's table and Jen's information and say, yeah.
So I think this, we can add an communication that we'll send out, by the end of this week, is to kind of, maybe we'll lead with that at the beginning to say, these are amazing things that we're doing. Also, I know you have a meeting coming up on X date, consider maybe changing it to the library, or maybe consider your next meeting after that one being at your local public library. And that way, again.
It's a core to advocacy. I mean.
Yeah,
It is.
come to your facilities, how great they are, all the resources that are available.
Two quick things I'd like to say on the card issue. Well, first off, I think the cards are really important. I'm not going to argue with that at all. But I think that something like 2 Street Festival, it's not necessarily just we want people to get cards. We want them to think about the library. Getting a card will help that. But then an awful lot of cards given out to schools and so on. We want
That's a first step or maybe a third step.
it's
but
somewhere
if
in
it's
there.
on
It's
three,
one of
yeah.
the things. But we wanted something like the 2 Street Festival for someone like Heather to be there saying, look at the things that we offer. Look at because people are still, if they get a library card, a lot of them are thinking, okay, if I need to get a book now, I can go get it. They're not seeing the whole breadth of what we offer. Okay. And the second thing, like I said, on the number of cards for the population, it's a tricky number because we really want to know. We sort of want to know by household, not by individuals. So when you divide it by that, it's just a little.
You can do a generalized.
You can do a generalized,
Yeah.
but you're going to find, I suspect if we think that 50% have cards, that you have fewer than 50% of the households with cards, because many households have 2 or 3 cards. So I don't know what the population breaks down, but I suspect it changes a little bit on that. And as a proxy for knowing the districts as far as their card numbers, we also have circulation, door count, things like that.
Right.
And
right.
that,
Those are part of it.
whether they have a card or not, is a little bit immaterial if they're not using it. If they're not coming in to use it, or they're not going online or using it, or they're not. So really, if you look at those numbers, I think Scott and his team put them together every month for us. And sometimes we look at them carefully, sometimes we don't. But they really do give us an idea of what areas of the city, I won't say are being underserved, because I think the librarians and the branches do a great job of serving them. I think they're being underutilized. They're not necessarily taking advantage of what we're offering at those. And we need to find ways to get out to those to the people and say, come into our branch. And that's where Sharon's point comes true again, that if, we're not getting people from certain areas much, maybe we need to be in some type of event in their area that lets us say, hey, come on over and let us show you what's happened since you were in the library last in 1998 or whatever, there's some of that going on. Okay. I mean, just my thoughts on it, but
You
Sharon,
brought that up.
yeah. It is important.
I'd like to put a plug in for that. All of the board members use social media so you can follow the library. Because I know they try hard to put things on Facebook and maybe Instagram. That's one way to see what's going on in the library, it's social media.
Any other thoughts on that? It really, Sharon, you opened up an interesting topic of discussion there. Thank you. Other thing?
To say,
Good.
certainly the Friends have done things like that and have done it with the library in the past, being at a table. Certainly our funds can be used to supplement any materials that's needed for this advocacy and, but also volunteer.
Good. That's actually a really helpful one.
Yeah.
Yay, Ruth.
Because one thing we have the ability to do since we upgraded our library management system is we can issue cards out in the community. As long as we take a hotspot with us,
Right.
we can make cards. It's a little bit laborious, so you have to have two people. But if friends can help, that's helpful.
And I
Great.
think we can help too.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other new business anyone would like to bring up? No? Okay.
About the libraries act.
Oh, so, it's been very interesting journey. We did a whole, research, a whole review to like find another app. Got some costs. Reached out to Cersei. Cersei was building a new app and they were gonna roll it out in February. And they have made a lot of progress on their new app. Since they're still building their app, but they also have made up nice with Solus, which was the company that drove the app. So apparently they are turning the app back on. and the
Oh,
feature
that's
should
good
be
news.
coming back on. We've been watching it, tracking it daily. It could be by the end of this week or the end of next
Oh,
week.
that's great.
And so, the app is gonna return the way it was. Hopefully, they'll be upgrading it with a new app because they've invested all this money in a new app. So the app is coming back.
Okay, excellent. That
So,
was a
So are we gonna
fail.
have to
That was a
download another
huge
app?
fail.
Just
If
click
you
on the app.
deleted the app, so here's the way I understand it. The vendor has to turn the app on and reconnect it to our databases. Then it has to be placed back in the app store. And this was something I've learned about the app store is organizations have access to the app store and they can allow the app to be allow Richmond Public Library app to exist. And our app is controlled under the city. So we have to tell the city to allow the vendor to allow the app to exist in the app store so our users may have access to it. So that process has to take place too. So if you haven't erased the app, keep trying it and it should turn on very soon. If you have erased the app, once we get it back in the app store, you should be able to download it and reactivate the app. So I'll be very pleased to see when the app starts working again because I really like the app. It's very nice. Hopefully they make it even better after this. I'm sorry we had to go through this for the last 4 months, but we were just dumbfounded when we discovered that, oh, Well, they made up, so now they're gonna. tell
That's
me how
really
that-
interesting.
I thought it was
Thank
very
you.
interesting. today.
That's really interesting.
So
Money has a.
I was hoping to come back next month and say, Yahoo, the app's working. But, so keep your eyes peeled, and
Yeah.
if it starts out sooner, our social media, and we'll announce it across our channels of communication and let many people know about that, once it's activated, so I'm hoping very soon.
Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna ask for a motion, oh, Ruth,
I
yes.
have one last thing. I
Yeah.
don't know if you and facilities, has there been, is there any information, do you expect the main branch to be affected on Saturday by the Trump?
Oh.
No. Oh, I haven't heard anything about this.
Down at the convention.
As you
Yeah.
see, there are. But I don't know if there's
Oh. Oh, okay.
any expectation.
And he's always looking.
This is news to me, so I'll look into it when we get back to the office. Thanks for bringing it up.
It was in the paper today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not till
Yeah,
6 o'clock in the
Saturday.
Is it an
evening.
evening thing?
It's 6 o'clock
Is
in
it?
the evening.
Yeah.
Okay. We've had a lot of activity the last several months downtown, like protests, and when the General Assembly's in, they always have things happening. So often if we're far enough out of it, now down at City Hall, they're kind of in it, but so if it comes down Broad Street, sometimes that impacts us, or if they come down Franklin Street. We haven't had anything lately, so. But I didn't know about that, so that's a new one. We'll look into that. Thanks for bringing it up.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for a motion that we adjourn.
I moved that we adjourn.
Second,
I second.
Garrett, Kennedy, all in favor, aye, we're adjourned. Thank you.